Coming out of Eastern Palace, once you get toward the bottom of the stairs, you want to transition Link's movement to an angled down left input. That'll be easier for him to flow around the corner and not get stuck on the left Armo statue. Once you're under the Armo statue, just continue to hold left and leap off the ledge. Once you are about to land from that ledge hop, you want to hold angle down left until you get to the next edge, and just continue to hold that same angle input until Link leaps off. By doing this, you actually line Link up cleaner to jump off the next ledge. Once Link lands on the ground level, you can do two different types of movement here. You can just continue to hold angle up left until Link actually passes the top corner of the mountain. You may nudge it a little bit, but it's not too much of a time loss. There's a lot of runners that actually do that. Or after briefly holding angle up left after you land, you can get in a few left air pumps until you are aligned with the top part of that mountain corner. And then just continue to hold left past it. Once you get past the left part of the mountain corner, go into an angle down left input and just hold that all the way until you leap off the next ledge towards Sasha's house. Once you leap off the last ledge, just continue to hold angle down left until Link is aligned with the bottom part of Sasha's house, and then just hold left and have a clean doorway inside. Once you get inside, you can talk to Sash a little bit further away than what most people think. You don't have to go up and give him a kiss. You can actually be quite a few pixels away from him, which is going to actually put you closer to the door below. In my opinion, he could be a bald man, but he is definitely wearing a cowboy hat. But during the Sash's text, you want to mash all 4 face buttons. And once you get to the last text, of course, you want to cancel it with L and R. And on the way out, depending on how far away you actually get the Sash talk, you can actually just walk out. It's very, very similar to dashing out. And the one thing to dashing out is if you're not hitting first frame dash, you're probably wasting a few frames as opposed to just walking out. Once you exit Sasha's house, you want to align Link just below the bottom portion of the house, go into a right input, and then once you are aligned with the right side of the house, you want to do a dash turn. So start your dash and then tap up. That'll save you quite a bit of frames rather than just turning up and then starting your dash. Once Link dashes toward the top, you want to cancel that dash with an angle up left input, and try to nicely align that dash cancel with the right rail of the stairs, and then just slide yourself to the middle part of the stairs. And right when you get at the beginning, you're going to want to slash your sword and you're going to want to do the spin speed. Spin speed is just basically charging your sword, and then once you release it, you need to slide your thumb right to the dash button or the A button 1 frame after releasing your sword. But one thing that I do notice that a lot of runners don't do, and this can definitely waste a lot of time, is as you're walking up the stairs and you're holding the sword charge, waiting to do the spin speed, double pump these stairs all the way up until that sword's charged. You don't have to wait to do that, but typically if you start your sword charge at the bottom of the stairs and then you double pump up, you're going to get pretty darn close to the top as soon as Link's sword is charged, which is going to put you in a great position. After getting your spin speed successful at the top of the stairs, you want to make sure that you come off the stairs cardinally with the left input, but you also want to make sure that you are as low as possible to the bottom rail. Obviously, the higher that you go, the further away from your destination that you're going to be, so it's going to lose you some frames. But once you clear the left part of the rail there, just make sure you stay close to it as you make your way down. And once you clear the bottom corner rail there, you want to go into an angle down right input and hold that until you clear the mountain on the left side. And once you do that, you're going to want to switch to a left input, and then you want to cut between the top 2 eagle statues. And then once you get through that, once again cut back through the top left and bottom left eagle statues, and align yourself with the left side of the bottom left statue, and you should just be able to cardinally go down and leap off the ledge. After you hit the ground floor, you're going to want to start a dash immediately and just dash straight down until you transition the screen. Be aware that the Octorok can give you some bad RNG where he shoots a rock left and actually hits you out of your dash. Once the screen transitions, you want to walk down a little bit until the mountain slopes down to the left, and then start your dash and then turn left. One thing we really haven't talked about too much is slope dashes. Slope dashes can be kind of wonky at times. Sometimes they can actually slow you down more. Sometimes they can pixel boost you faster. And I know some of the slope dashes have to do with sub-pixels and whatnot, but just to be aware that certain slope dashes, if you start your dash and hit a slope at a certain point, it can do various things to your movement. But once you hit that dash turn to the left, just follow that until the screen transition. So this screen can be pretty difficult and annoying. I've seen a lot of runners dash all the way left and clink swords with the green guard, which will aggro the bow guard below him. So as you try to dash down, you just get sniped, and then you move and you try to dash down again, you get sniped again by an arrow. It can be pretty annoying, but luckily there is some movement fixes so that won't happen. So once you actually transition the screen, there's two things that you want to make sure that you do. The first one is you can hold angle up left and start your dash immediately. By doing this, you move Link just barely up a pixel, and you get out of the way of the green guard that's walking up so you won't clink swords with him. The second one I just briefly talked about is just starting your dash as early as possible. If you can get a first frame dash, you actually don't even have to hold angle up left at all. You'll pass right by the guard, but doing those two movements together, they're going to ensure that you get through this without aggroing the guard and getting sniped by the bow guard below. After starting your dash there, you're going to pass the green guard, make sure that you're aligned with the left part of the bridge, and then continue to face down and start your dash downward past the blue guard. Once you get below the left side of the bridge and you begin to dash left, just make sure that you are aligned with the top part of the dirt hill going into the water. And the reason for that is because obviously you don't want to go lower, but on the next following screens, you want to make sure that Link is as high as possible, because it's going to line us up with a bush dash that we're going to get into shortly. This screen, just start your dash as soon as you can. You'll dash through that bush. Like I said previously, if you do enter that screen just a little bit lower than normal, you're going to end up bonking on that bush. Just continue your dash left until you transition the screen. Here you want to start your dash as soon as possible out of the screen transition, all the way until you get to the first row of bushes. And once Link dashes through that first bush and destroys it, there's a few different movement techniques that you can do here. You can either cancel your dash with a right input and then start your dash again and then tap down, which will put you right at that slope to go to the next screen. Or you can save yourself a few frames. As you're dashing left, you want to hold the left input. This will actually make it a little bit easier and quicker for you to cancel your dash on a dime. So you would just cancel your dash with that angle down left input as you restart your dash and then turn down. On this screen, you just want to continue your dash down, and the visual cue here is just that little slope on the right side. Once Link dashes past that slope, you want to cancel that dash with a left input and then restart your dash immediately. And another good visual cue that you're lined up correctly is the bottom of Link's shadow actually lines up with the grass squiggly line that goes left on the pathway toward the next screen. On this screen, you just continue to dash left all the way through the bushes until you get right at the edge of the mountain slope on the left side. I have seen a few runners do this a little bit differently, but ultimately what you want to do optimally is stop your dash right at the edge of that mountain slope and then restart your dash going upward right at that exact corner. You don't need to go up any higher. This corner, while you up dash, will actually put you on the left side of the tree line so you won't bonk. This short screen actually has two different techniques that you can do. If you're planning on doing a spin speed technique on the next screen, you actually want to continue to hold your sword out as you transition to this one. That way you don't have to re-slash your sword, because when you transition to an additional screen, Link already has his sword out. So that's just less frames that you're going to lose by re-slashing if you just continue to hold it out. If you are going to do the spin speed technique into the library, just continue to hold your sword out on this screen and make your way up and to the left. But you want to transition the screen right at the very top of that tree line on the left. Try to be as low as possible with it. You are going to do the bush dash to the library. You don't have to worry about holding your sword. Just make your way to the left. And you want to actually transition this screen just a little bit higher than the tree line. That way you're lined up with the bush and you don't bonk. If you are doing the optimal movement to the library on this screen, as soon as you transition, you want to get yourself into the super speed state by doing the spin speed technique. And once you have that completed, continue to hold left and air pump up toward the ladder in front of you. Now you only have to touch the very bottom of it. You don't need to go up the ladder at all to activate it. So once you touch it, you get the super speed state right off of it and just continue to follow the pathway. And once you get to the library ladder, you're going to want to continue to hold up and double pump left and right. Once you come off the ladder with the super speed state, it is a little bit difficult just because the entrance to the library is so close. So a lot of people tend to try to enter the door and they end up passing it, and then they wobble back and forth trying to get into the door, which is kind of goofy, but you're just going to have to get used to the movement, or at least the short movement there between the ladder and the door. But coming off those stairs in that state, you can just briefly hold angle upright, and then once you see Link begin to get off that ladder, you can just hold up and go into the door. Like I said, it may take a little bit of practice and timing, but it is pretty easy. The second strategy shown on the library screen is the bush dash, and what you want to do is just continue to dash left through the bush, and once you get aligned with the left part of the mountain ledge, you just want to walk straight up, walk all the way left, and then once you get in between the house and the rail, you're going to want to turn up and dash, which sounds kind of goofy to do movement wise just because you want to maximize your dash, but the space that you have between the house and the rail, you're just going to end up grabbing the house if you try to dash turn looking left. So just hit up and dash all the way up toward the stairs, cancel with an angle up left input. And once you get on the stairs, just like before, double pump all the way up. And once you get off the stairs, just hold angle up right and then snap into the doorway. There is a comparison to the library screen that we do show, which is really cool to see. It just shows all the different strategies that you can do and time differences between them. But I think the main one to notice is just the difference between the spin speed versus just doing the bush dash. On average, you'd probably save about 30 frames by doing spin speed versus doing the bush dash. Once you get into the library, you just want to hold up out of the doorway and then go to an immediate left input. The visual cue that I use are the brick lines on the bottom part of the wall. Once you get to the second brick line, I try to line up the inside part of Link's shield with that brick line, and that's when I begin to start my dash looking left and then turn up to bonk into the bookcase. After that, just do a quick right input to get in between the two bookshelves. This one can be pretty difficult to not nudge on the way up. It just takes a little bit of practice, but just make sure you start your dash looking right and then turn up to save those frames. And cancel your dash right in between the top part of the bookshelves there. If you're quick, you can get some double pumps in between the bookshelves up and down, just to speed up Link's movement a little bit as you grab the book. As you make your way out of here, you want to start your dash looking right and then tap down. And I like to hold down as I'm dashing here just because it makes it easier to cancel the dash with an angle down right input, and then just exit the door cleanly. Exiting the library, I see a lot of runners that actually slash their sword immediately out of the doorway. You don't want to do that because then you have to take the time to walk Link from the door and then angle him down toward the top of the ladder. Honestly, you're wasting time. So leaving the doorway and get to the top of the ladder and then slash your sword. As you make your way down the ladder, that's going to be enough time for Link to charge a sword, and then you just want to do the spin speed technique right at the bottom. And as you hold down to get off that ladder, he's going to be able to get into that state immediately. As you make your way down to the bottom of the pathway, you can just hold the angle down right input, and then once you get below the part of the ledge there, go into a right input, and then you want to just barely go above that bush and then back down to transition the screen. Back on the short screen here, you can actually transition the screen in a few different places. Some runners choose to exit the screen at the left of the pathway, some at the middle, and then some on the far right. It just really depends on the strategies you're doing on the next screen. I like to personally enter on the left side of the pathway because there's a movement that I do on the next part of the screen that aggroes the guard, and it actually gets me past him without getting hit most of the time. So as the screen transitions, I actually hold angle down right, and there's a few reasons I do that. One, to get a little bit more to the right, and that actually aggroes the blue guard on the bottom. And also, starting your dash from an angle input actually can help you out with the slope dash at the bottom here, so you don't land on a bad pixel or anything. But The bigger thing here is just aggroing the guard as soon as possible. Now, restarting your dash optimally, what you want to do is once you clear the slope corner on the bottom right of that mountain, you want to start your dash right, and then you can actually dash through the bottom section of the bushes there. That can be a little bit risky just depending on how early you aggro the guard or how close he is to Link or he's about to sword poke you, but you can go down a little bit further and then just dash right below the bushes. It's not too much of a time waste, but like I said, to do it optimally, it is a little bit risky. Dashing on the next screen, just continue to go right, and then you want to stop your dash and turn up to redash. And the visual cue that I use is the squiggly line on the right side of the pathway. That'll put Link a few pixels to the right of the tree line, but not too close where you think you might bonk. Here you just want to hold up for a few tiles and then start your dash and turn right at the start of the mountain slope, and just continue to dash all the way through the screen transition. On this screen, the blue guard can be a little bit weird because you can actually just dash straight forward from the screen transition, and most times than not you can be pretty safe dashing downward, but the guard can get close to you, he can get aggroed pretty early, and he can sword poke you out of your dash. So the movement you want to do right at the screen transition is just hold angle upright. That'll put Link a little bit higher than the guard, and as you dash through him, because you are a little bit higher, he's going to bounce in a different direction, and it's going to make the dash downward as you're aligned with the right part of the mountain path to be a lot safer. This downward dash can be risky, but will save you some frames. Continue downward on this screen until you hit the slope of the mountainside, and you want to start your dash looking down and then turn left just to maximize those frames. As you dash through the bushes, you do have an opportunity to take advantage of a really well-timed menu buffer. And this menu buffer is pretty important to the book on this exact point because you can actually avoid dashing in the water. Dashing in the water or walking in the water is really bad for Link's movement. It slows him down considerably. So you definitely don't want to miscue this dash at all, or dash a little bit to the left, which means he's going to be in the water. So in my opinion, this is probably the better screen for the menu buffer, but towards Desert Palace, there are two other places that you can menu buffer that would be pretty good as well. I would never tell somebody that they have to menu buffer in a specific spot. What I would say is make sure you take full advantage of that menu buffer. If you're really good at the water dash without it, perfect, fine. If it's used in a better place for you to make sure that you don't bonk or you don't nudge on something, perfect. But I just wanted to make sure that I point out this is a very, very good spot for the menu buffer to the book. Entering the screen, you want to just hold angle down left, and then once you clear the bottom right corner of the rock, you want to hold left but up pump against it until you transition the screen. On this screen, you just want to start your dash left immediately, and the visual cue to stop that left dash to begin dashing downward is the very end of the long grass, and that'll put you exactly where you need to be to dash down through the bush below you. Once you dash through the bush, you want to stop your dash and then begin to dash left. You want to make sure that you stop your dash right below the bush that's right to the left of Link, and that will align you up perfectly with the start of the mountain slope on your left. But one thing to note here is starting your dash at that point right below that bush on your left, that position is going to make sure that you're safe from the Bogard, from the crow, from the hopping bunny creature looking thing that pops out of the long grass, whatever the heck you call that thing. I know it's a little bit of a scary dash because you have a lot of things going on in that area, but as long as you're aligned perfectly below that bush and you start your dash left, you're going to be fine. And then just continue that dash until you transition the screen. Here you want to walk left all the way until you get to the mountain part where it slopes upward, and then you want to start your dash and turn up. Now there's a few different movement strategies you can do here. I don't think it's too different in time, but you can dash all the way up so you're aligned above the middle slope so you don't hit it, but you hit the slope on the top. You can also align yourself with the bottom slope and then dash up that, and then you're going to hit the top slope. But a few different ways to do it. I don't think it's too different in time, just two different techniques to do. Now once you dash down on the far left part of the mountain slope, there is an important visual cue when you stop your dash on that last slope and you dash left toward the screen transition. And the important visual cue here is being able to line up the bottom of Link's shadow with the very top piece of the grass that's all the way to the left right before the screen transition. If you can line up the bottom of Link's shadow with the top piece of that grass, you are 100% safe on the next screen and will not dash into the cactus. And what's really cool about this is you actually get about a second of screen transition time to see exactly Link's position with this piece of grass. So it does give you that brief moment to figure out if you need to readjust or not. On this screen, just continue to dash left if you're in the right position to be below the cactus. And you want to stop your dash and start to dash upward when Link is lined up with the top mountain shadow corner where it begins to slope up. So to clarify, if you look at the bottom middle part of the mountain, just above that is a shadow of it. Now, if you follow the top line of the shadow to the left corner, right when it begins to slope up, that is your visual cue. Now, this particular spot right here is also a really good position to menu buffer the book if you decided not to do it on the water dash. This way, you don't shorten your dash or you don't dash further left and then have to walk back right once you get towards the top. As you dash upward toward Desert Palace, it's always a good thing to hold up because you're going to cancel the dash as close to the desert wall as you can. That really helps to ensure that you don't bonk, and it's just an easier angle upright cancel for your dash. Now at this point, right at the wall is another good spot for the book menu buffer if you chose not to do it on the previous two to make sure that you don't bonk. Once you hit the beginning of the stairs, you can wiggle left and right to speed up Link's movement. Part of the new tech or the new stair movement that was recently discovered, once you get toward the top of the stairs, you can actually dash up, and that'll speed up Link's movement a little bit because if you're just walking off the stairs, you get a little bit of lag. But this technique here to line up with the tablet to open up Desert Palace can be a little bit risky because you can off-center yourself quite a bit, or you can actually bonk into the tablet that you're reading with the book, and that can lose you quite a bit more time. I have seen other runners choose to wait their book menu buffer all the way to this point so they don't end up bonking on it. One thing I will note here, if the bottom of Link's shadow is lined up with the inside white line of that square tile, that's actually how far away you can be and still be able to read the tablet with the book. You actually have a few frames where pressing Y will stop your dash as I show in the video. Once the cutscene begins, you can mash all 4 face buttons until the dark prayer circle begins to widen. At this point, be sure not to hit any more buttons to avoid reading the tablet again. Once Desert Palace is open up, just hold angle up left to get by the tablet, but don't go too far left. And then once you get past the bottom left corner of that, you can start pumping right against it as you're moving up, and then start to air pump right to align yourself with the middle pathway to the stairs that lead up to the entrance. And then once you get on the stairs, just double pump left and right as you make your way up. Once you get into the entrance to Desert Palace, you want to walk up out of the door and then align yourself with the wall on the bottom. You want to start your dash looking upward and tap left to dash alongside the bottom part of the wall. You want to cancel your dash and then start to dash up. Typically when Link's left ear is about halfway through the sand enemy that's coming up from the floor. As you're dashing up, you want to cancel that dash with a left input as you get above the left corner of the wall in the pathway where the 2 pots are, and grab the bottom pot because that's going to be your arrows. And then as you make your way left, make sure that you're going to be aligned with the right part of the wall as you start your dash, and then tap up to continue dashing to transition the screen. Alright, for this screen you have the antlion or the sand monster or whatever you want to call it. There are a few different techniques that you can do to kill this guy swiftly, but when you transition the screen, you want to make sure that you continue to hold your sword out so you don't have to re-slash, and then just hold angle upright all the way till you get past the left part of the wall, and then align yourself with the middle of this enemy. And as you walk into him, you're going to sword poke him, which is going to do half the damage, and then you want to take a step to the left and then immediately start your dash. What that's going to do is that's going to basically dash poke him, which is the second hit, and it's going to kill him. But more importantly, you're not going to drop your sword during that dash poke animation, and you're going to be starting your dash and getting ready to get toward the top of the screen as you're killing him. Another technique that you can do is when you transition the screen, just hold your sword out, align yourself with the left part of the wall, and as you make your way up, just release your spin and kill him that way. If you're using the dash technique, just make sure that you cancel your dash at the top of the wall near the entrance of the door. You can end up dashing just a little bit too high, and Link is going to get stuck in the doorway and not allow you to dash left. So just be careful of that. Once you are aligned, just change Link's movement to left, start your dash to transition the screen. Now this screen going into the key bonk room is a little goofy because you want to make sure that you're aligned with the grid. The big reason for that is because if you hold left out of the screen transition and start your dash, you're not going to line up with the doorway, and when you go in it, you're going to nudge it. So make sure that you're aligned with the grid, and what you want to do is, as the screen transitions, don't move, just start your dash right from there, and that gives you a much better chance to stop on the pixel that you need to go through the top door cleanly. The key bonk room, there are a few different movement techniques that you can do here. A lot of different runners will do it differently. There's not too much time difference, it just really matters how comfortable you are with the technique that you do. The one that I show you here is the one that I typically do, and a lot of runners do as well. But through the door, I just hold up, and then I transition to an angle up left input to make sure I get by the BMOS and not get hit by the laser. And once I am aligned with the bottom part of the torch, I start my dash and I turn left to bonk into the wall. As long as you're aligned with the bottom part, even hitting the wall will bounce the key off of it. And then going to grab the key and then walking right, and then you can start your dash down. The BMOS sprite is fairly large, but the hitbox still remains quite small. So dashing south here, you can be a few pixels inside the enemy without getting hit. After exiting the door, you want to just hold down briefly until you're aligned with the top part of the wall. Start your dash and tap right, and then continue to dash all the way through the screen transition. This screen, just continue to dash right all the way through. Here you want to continue to dash right, but you want to stop your dash and turn down and then re-dash again right before Link hits the middle pot. We're going to be grabbing that arrow pot on the way back, but just continue to dash down on the left side of it all the way through the screen transition. On this screen, you can just continue to hold angle down right all the way through to open up the door. You want to align yourself typically with the middle to open up the door, but some of the doors have some quirky movement to them. And some of these east-facing doors you can actually open not all the way at the top, but a little bit higher than the middle and get quicker movement inside than actually entering directly from the middle. In this room, you want to hold right out of the doorway and then immediately go into an angle upright input. And once you're about to get to the top left corner of the statue, you want to turn up and slash the top enemy, and then turn right and dash, and that dash is going to kill the bottom middle enemy. And then once you get past the top right statue, you're going to want to turn up and slash the top right enemy to kill him. Once you get past the statue by moving up, you want to turn Link's movement to the left and then go into an angle up left input. And then once you get toward the corner of the door, you want to snap into it for clean movement. The Cannonball Room has quite a few different RNGs. These are typically the ones that most people kind of deal with on a regular run basis or have some issues with, especially the last two. But once you're able to move Link, just make sure you start your dash as soon as possible. That can actually get you a clean dash through some of the worst RNGs if you're a little bit quick on that dash. But on this one, as you dash up toward the big key chest, I like to hold the up input because it'll get me a lot closer to the chest and allow me to have an easier dash cancel as I hit angle up left or angle up right, whatever you want to use to cancel your dash. But just make sure after you open it that you realign Link if he's not directly center so you can have a clean door dash on the way out. The second RNG at Cannonballs that's shown here is actually, it can be a good or bad RNG depending on how quickly you get Link's dash off in the entrance of the door to this room. I get the dash off first frame, so I was lucky enough to be quick enough to pass through here. If you stall a little bit in the doorway or don't get a quick dash, you are going to have to stop and realign yourself to re-dash in the middle of these cannonballs. This next RNG is bad RNG where you're going to have to cancel Link's dash right in the middle of the top set and the bottom set of the cannonballs. If you do it quick enough just by continuing to hold up as you dash and then canceling with an angle left input and then restarting a dash right away, you are able to make it through to the chest cleanly on that re-dash. On this specific RNG, the dash out is going to be a little bit different. So after you grab the big key chest, you want to walk down until you hit the sand. As soon as you hit the sand, then you want to start your dash out and it'll be a nice clear path for you. The last RNG shown is kind of more of a difficult one. It's one cannonball on the top that you have to avoid, and restarting your dash in the middle of this RNG is really difficult. But it's just like the one before where you had to cancel your dash in the middle and then restart. But this one on the way back is going to be different as well. After grabbing the big key from the chest, this particular RNG where there was one cannonball on the top, you are able just to re-dash directly below the chest and you should have a clear pathway out. Into the next room, just hold left out of the doorway and start to air pump downward until you get clear of the top left statue, and then you can transition to an angle down left input toward the door and then snap into it. Here you want to walk left out of the door and then immediately transition to an angle up left input, and then you can hold that input all the way until you clear the corner of the right wall, and then once you clear that corner, go into an up movement and then start to pump right against the wall. On this screen you want to start your dash immediately and then hold up, which will allow you to cancel your dash a lot closer to this middle pot with an angle up left input, and then lift up the pot, grab the arrow, and then align Link up perfectly with the square platform that the pot sits on, and start your dash and tap left, and that should align you perfectly with the wall on the bottom that you're dashing against. This screen, just continue to dash left. Here you want to start your dash immediately, but make sure you're holding the left input the entire way, and that will allow you to get much closer to the wall that the door is on to be able to cancel your dash with an angle down left input. After canceling your dash, just make sure you snap into the doorway for clean movement. As you enter the pots room, you want to clear the doorway first, just with some left movement, and then you want to go down a pixel. That will align you perfectly up with the pot that's in front of you to be able to pick it up. Grab the arrows, continue left, and then once you clear the pot that's above you, you can transition to an angle up left input. That'll put you right in front of the switch pot. Once you lift up that pot, Link's going to hit the switch, and you want to position Link upward and then to the right so you can grab the bottom left portion of the top left pot. That's going to be your second 5 arrow pot in the room, and then you want to just snap into the doorway up top. I wanted to show the pots room again because if you get to this point and you have no rupees or very, very low on rupees, I'd say like 3 or less rupees, you definitely want to grab the blue rupee pot in here just to get yourself into a much better position. So it's the same strategy as before, but this time after picking up the first pot and grabbing your first set of arrows, you want to grab the pot directly above that. That's going to be your blue rupee, and then continue to do the rest of this room with the same strategy as shown before. The big chest room, there's actually a few different techniques that you can do here, mainly because of the new stair tech. But what you want to do is, as soon as you hit the bottom part of the stairs, you want to start to wiggle Link left and right. That'll speed up his movement. And then after you open up the chest, as you make your way down, once Link's shadow is lined up with the third stair from the bottom, that's when you want to start your dash. That is a lot faster to dash out at that point, rather than just continuing to walk down and out of the door. The second technique shown in this room is the new stair tech. Basically, it's the same as before. As soon as you hit the stairs, you want to start wiggling left and right to speed up Link's movement. But as soon as there's about 3 stairs left at the top, you want to hit the dash button, and that's going to dash Link, basically skipping the rest of the stairs on the way up and putting him right in front of the chest, which is going to be quite a bit faster than just doing it the normal way. And then as you make your way out, same technique. Once you hit the third stair from the bottom, start your dash and make your way out. Back in this room, you want to hold angle down left out of the doorway, and then once you get clear of that top right pot, you're going to have to do about a step of down movement and then go right back into an angle down left again to hit the switch while Link is still moving down. After you hit the switch, take another step down, start your dash and turn right, making sure that you're aligned with the doorway on the way out. And also, just like before, this BMOS has a very small hitbox, so it's very lenient. Coming out of the doorway, you want to move right and then transition to an angle down right input. And you can just hold that all the way until you clear the bottom right corner, and then just transition down to get to the next screen. You want to start your dash immediately on this screen, mainly because of the Antlion or the sand monster. You can actually stay aligned with the left part of the wall and then actually dash all the way down. Just make sure you cancel your dash toward the bottom of the screen with the left input, but make sure that you're in the middle of the pathway to ensure that your left dash has clean door movement. Out of the door, you can hold angle down left until you get right before the exit, and then you want to snap straight left and then down through the door. Making our way to the second part of deserts. Once we're outside, there are a few different things you can do, the most optimal being spin speed off of these stairs. It can be very scary to do spin speed because while you're in the super speed state, even if you touch a ledge or a corner, you're going to hop immediately. And you definitely don't want to do that because then you're going to have to re-go through the entrance of desert again and make your way all the way back around. But with this one, what you can do is once you exit, slash your sword immediately. You can stall for like a half a second and then make your way down. And once there's about 2 stairs left, do the spin speed technique. And this is more of a timing thing, but it's just knowing when you're going to come off the stairs in that super speed state. But the optimal movement here is as you're coming off the stairs, you want to come off it down briefly and then go right into a right input. And with that right input, you want to immediately menu buffer to your lamp. And that will ensure that you don't jump off of that small pathway where that ledge is. Now, some runners just continue to hold down off of these stairs. That's definitely okay to do that, just to make sure they don't hop off the ledge. That is wasting some movement because you're moving down and further away from the entrance where you need to be. If you do choose to do the desert spin speed with the right movement, which is a little bit more optimal, and you switch to the lamp with the menu buffer, just continue to hold angle up right all the way until you get to the rock, lift it up, and then snap into the doorway. The second option shown here is just simply walking down the stairs, turning right, starting your dash, and then tapping up to dash up the slope of the exit, and then menu buffering to the lamp to ensure that you don't bonk at the top of the wall. And then once you get clear of that menu, just lift up the rock and go into the entrance to the next part. Now, there are a few other different places near the end here, especially in the torches room, where you can menu buffer to the lamp if desired. It really just depends on what works best for you. Once you get into the entrance, you just want to hold up and start to air pump to the right, all the way until you get to the bottom right block. You're going to push and open up the door. One thing I will note about pushing blocks, especially to open up doors, is you want to make sure that you maximize your movement here and you don't follow the block as you're pushing it. Once you have enough frames to push the block, just get off that block immediately as it starts its moving transition, which will save you quite a bit of time. There's a lot of cases where runners will continue to push on a block that's already moving, and they're wasting so much time. In this room, it's actually your first opportunity to do a key dash. Now, how key dashes work is basically you are 1 pixel below a key door, and that will trigger the opening. Now, to actually dash through it, you need to place Link on a multiple of 4 pixels within the grid. It sounds pretty difficult, but luckily it's actually pretty easy because things like walls and torches and pots, they're actually placed on multiples of 4. So you just have to align yourself with a pot or with a wall and then just usually dash or dash turn, and you can simply get the key dash that way. So as we enter this room, get through the doorway and then transition to a left input, and you want to ensure that you're on the bottom of the wall because it's lined up where you need to be for the key dash, which is a multiple of 4 pixels. So to ensure that, as you're moving left, you want to pump down against this wall, and then you want to make your way to the pot, grab the key, turn right, and walk all the way to the very center of the door you just walked through, and then you want to start your dash and then turn up. That's the only way you're going to be able to get the key dash is if you're aligned with the bottom there. If you align yourself with the door and then you tap up and start your dash, you're absolutely going to bonk on the key door. Here you just want to start your dash as soon as possible and then dash all the way through the doorway on the bottom. Alright, the Popo Genocide room. What you want to do here is, once you get through the doorway, continue to walk left, and my visual cue for this one, so you don't line up too far left on this enemy before you dash, is the left part of Link's shadow as you're walking left typically lines up with the right part of the enemy. And that way, once you see that visual cue, you are definitely good to go to start your dash facing left and then tap down and still be able to kill him, even though you are definitely far right of him. Once you dash down and you dash through the first enemy, once you are lined up with the bottom left enemy, stop your dash and slash left. Now at this point, you have to pay attention to the top Popo RNG, and it really just depends on where he goes. You typically want to at least kill the bottom one first if they split, but if the top one starts to move way left, high, fast, and then the bottom one stays relatively close to the door, you're definitely better off diverting from the bottom one and going for the top one before he gets way too far left. But in this RNG is definitely what you want. Both those right Popos get close to the door. I'm able to kill both of them in one slash and dash through the door. The second RNG, the top right Popo decides to go to the top of the wall on the right side, which is pretty typical during a run. It is a little bit faster once you kill the bottom right one to start your dash and turn up. Once your sword is about to hit the enemy, you can cancel your dash, it'll kill them, and then just make your way to the door and enter it cleanly. On a side note, if you are in this room and you're still relatively low of rupees, the Popo Genocide room can definitely give you some good rupee drops. This room has a few different techniques that you can do. Once you hold right through the door, you want to go up and start your dash facing up and then tap right, making sure that you are aligned to not nudge the torch that's on the right side there. Also, that dash is going to kill the first Popo that's in your way. You want to stop your dash before you hit the statue and then start your dash again upward, and then you want to cancel it with an angle up left input as soon as you get to the corner of the wall. Now at this point there are a few different things to do. I do show a few different techniques and a few different RNGs, but the first one that I show here is a clear pathway all the way to the key pot. As you make your way to the pot, just try to align yourself with the middle of it so you don't nudge on the left one or the right one as you pick up the key. This key dash, I have seen some runners nudge the torch, which will put you on the right pixel to do the key dash, but you are wasting a lot of frames by that nudge. So what you want to do is, as you grab the key, you want to clear that square and turn left, and then as you walk left, make sure you are aligned to the left of that torch, but you're also aligned with the very bottom of the pots. This will put you on that 4 pixel grid to start your dash left and turn up and get that key dash. The second technique, and also additional RNG that I show here, is once you get towards the top, the Popos can start to branch out to the left. Now you can air pump to the left, you can kill the Popo. You do have to be aware of where that Popo is though, because if he's usually in front of that key pot and you slash him, that gives the BMOS enough time to hit you with his laser. So typically when I see this type of RNG, I just like to stick to the wall on the right. You can get a few right pumps in if you want, but for the most part, when they're in that bad positioning, you can just stick to that wall and you can slide right above them, grab the key, align yourself with the bottom part of the pots, start your dash left, turn up, and you'll hit the key dash. The last technique is a little bit different, and it can help out with bad Popo RNG toward the top if they're covering the key and you don't want to get hit by the BMOS. Is start the room like you normally would, but once you dash up right to the left of that statue, you want to cancel your dash above the next torch on your left, walk to the left of it, restart your dash and tap up. This is a little bit slower, but at some points on specific RNGs, it can be a little bit safer. But it also can get you into trouble too if you dash up by killing the right Popo that's in your way and the left Popo decides to move right as you're picking up the key pot and then bounces right into you. So it can be good, it can be bad depending on the RNG. You just really have to get a feel for the different techniques and what really works for you in different situations. In this room, you just want to start your dash immediately and then stop your dash with the right input, trying to align yourself with the bottom left of that key pot. Once you lift it up and grab the key, you want to immediately transition Link to an angle up left input and then go all the way to the door, hit the door and unlock it, and then you want to snap into it with cardinal movement. The torch room before Lanmo can be pretty rough, especially if the red Igor bops you or gets in your way. But you want to start your dash immediately through the doorway and then cancel your dash with the left input, making sure that you are aligned perfectly above the pots there so you don't nudge them. The important thing here to note is the way that you light the torches. You don't have to be exactly lined up with him. So fun fact, you can actually light torches about 11 pixels away from the torch if you're facing left or right, which is considerable distance versus being all the way pushed up against it as you light it. But if you are aware of that, it's a little bit less than a tile, but it can definitely save you a lot of time when you're lighting torches. If you're lighting torches facing up, it's about 7 pixels away from that torch that you can be to light it. But ultimately what you want to do here as you're dashing left is you want to cancel your dash with an angle down left input once you get closer to that bottom left torch, and then light it as you're a little bit away from it, and then immediately turn right and light the bottom right one. and go into an angle upright input briefly just to get a little bit to the right of the red Igor. Now if you did that bottom portion fast enough, you should have nice clean up movement and be able to light the top right torch without that red Igor hitting you. And then of course just walk left and light the last torch on the top left. Hold angle up left, switch to the bow, and then unlock the door at that angle and then snap into it. The Lanmo fight, everyone's favorite and most impossible boss. So the number one key to being good at Lanmos is you gotta practice. Practice. You gotta practice, 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 practice. Practice. And if you're not practicing, you should be practicing. So keep practicing. It's the only way you're gonna get better. It's the only way you're gonna be number one. So this fight is pretty difficult to do, especially optimally, but even more difficult to talk about because there's so much RNG involved for a good fight, but also more importantly, there's a lot of really important movement within this fight that you need to have really, really fast reaction timing for. The first thing you want to do just to set yourself up for the beginning of the fight, I actually kind of angle upright my movement out of the doorway. That's just to get me a little bit more right and a little bit to the right of the first Lanmo on the top left. But ultimately what you want to do is you want to bonk into the top of the wall. That's going to place you where you want to be. And at that point, you want to sword buffer up a few pixels. I like to sword buffer angle up right a pixel. 2 pixels up is usually the best place that you want to line yourself up with to begin this fight. And the reason I say that is because that positioning allows you to get at least 2 arrows into the first one more frequently, and it also allows you to get hit less by the first Lanmo if he decides to take a right pathway or an upper right pathway. The other important thing to note here is after you sword buffer up, you want to make sure that you do a dash turn. Now the Lanmos have a visual cue that is shown to indicate when they're going to come up so you can be ready to fire your arrows. So they're going to start in a small circle, and then it's going to wiggle a little bit, and then the circle is going to get bigger. I call that like the full circle. Once the circle of the Lanmo is full, the Lanmo, as it's digging upward, is going to wiggle briefly left and then right. I call that a full wiggle. So there's going to be 3 full wiggles after the Lanmo's circle is full before it's about to emerge from the ground. When you're ready to start firing arrows at Lanmo, the most consistent way to do this is to fire 2 arrows left, and as you're firing your second arrow, you begin to move a few steps to the left. The Lanmo on the left side, if he begins to go right, there is a chance that he can hit you out of your position, but that's the main reason why we go a few pixels up, to give us the best possible chance to be able to walk through him. But fire 2 arrows left, take a step or so to the left, and then turn and fire 2 arrows to the right, and then position yourself to start firing arrows down at the Lanmo. This is the most consistent way to get 2 cycles or even an early 3 cycle. What you basically want to do on the last Lanmo, since that's the more important one, just because that Lanmo takes the longest to spawn, so the more arrows you get into him, the better. Or even if you can kill him on phase 1, put yourself in a really good position. So what you can do is you can start firing your arrows down at the Lanmo. At least 2 would be ideal, but you can kind of angle yourself down and to the right after the first arrow, just to hope that he does go up and to the right. And at that point, after getting those 2 arrows in, you can change your position and fire another arrow, and then fire another arrow up and try to kill that third Lanmo in the first phase. If you are unable to get into a quick position as you're following that third Lanmo, depending on his pathway, you can try to get 3 arrows in and then just get 1 slash before he goes back into the floor. Another cool thing too, if that third Lanmo goes straight up, you are able to fire 2 arrows down at him and then switch your position underneath and start to look up. And then you can fire 2 more arrows back up at the third Lanmo and be able to take him out in phase 1 as well. Now, one thing to note here, which is a little bit goofy when the Lanmos pop up, it could have something to do with the altitude or just how the Lanmos move in general. But typically when the Lanmos go up, it's pretty rapid, pretty fast. But if they, go left, right, or down, sometimes it takes a little bit to get the Lanmo on its wiggle path quickly. So at that point, left, right, or down, you are able to get a few arrows into the Lanmo, sometimes 3, sometimes even 4, if it's a really slow wiggle process before that Lanmo really starts to get moving toward the direction that he's going. But it's always nice to know that you can fire at least 2 or 3 arrows into a Lanmo when he's on that direction as soon as he pops up, because it does take that time that the Lanmo stalls before it starts to take off. Now, one thing to talk about here, positioning on the Lanmos is extremely important. So this does take a lot of practice, it does take a lot of reaction, but just watching where the Lanmos spawn, you can actually almost predict where they're going to go. So just say a Lanmo spawns on the bottom right, you can actually predict he's either going to go up, left, or up and to the left. There's not a lot of room to the right or down below for that Lanmo to go. So typically on the bottom side, you want to position yourself on the top part of the Lanmo. And what I do is basically fire that first arrow and I get ready to go at an angle down, because I feel like he is going to go left. So I'm going to be able to get a few arrows into him and then reposition myself from that point. But can they quick hop down or right? Absolutely. But it's not likely for them to do so. So you have better odds of guessing where they're going to go depending on where their position is. Firing arrows against Lanmo, you want to make sure you have a nice rhythm. You don't want to mash the firing button, because if you end up missing one of your arrows or you fire too quickly before the first arrow hits and then Link needs to redo his bow animation, that can waste some time. But more importantly, if you do miss a Lanmo with an arrow, you have to wait for that arrow to move across screen, hit the wall, and then you might miss other opportunities to hit Lanmos going in other directions because you missed that arrow and you have to wait for it to be able to fire another one. Moving along with the Lanmo is really going to help you out in this fight. Just following the head. So just say, you know, Lanmo is above you and you're below positioning yourself. You fire one, take a step to the right, fire another one up, take a step to the right, and fire another one. Just being able to follow that Lanmo, because a lot of the times Lanmo has a long wiggle that they can do where you can easily fire 4 arrows on one phase just by following it. So in order to kill the Lanmos, you need to fire off 4 arrows in each one. Your sword will do damage as well. I believe it's 2 swings equal out to the damage of an arrow. You don't necessarily want to use a sword spin attack because it's not going to do any more additional damage versus this boss, but in certain situations, slashing and sword poking a Lanmo that's got 1 hit left is definitely a good technique to use. Also, one big thing to talk about in this fight is after firing some arrows into a Lanmo and then directly going into a sword swipe just to get an extra hit on him, if you think that you don't have enough time to get another arrow off before he goes back into the ground, you have to be very weary of that, because if you slash him right when you hit him with an arrow, it's going to cancel that arrow damage, and then you're going to have to do additional damage to that Lanmo even though you've already hit him with an arrow. I would say it's pretty important to keep count on the Lanmos just to know how many arrows you have in each one. I know it can be kind of confusing to keep count, especially when 2 of the Lanmos are popping up at the same time and you're not sure which one is which, but it's definitely a very good idea to keep count. That way, just say you have 1 Lanmo that is 1 arrow away from death and 1 that is 3 arrows away, or even 4 because you missed one. Well, you definitely want to focus on the Lanmo that needs 3 or 4 arrows, because it's going to be pretty tough if you focus on the one that only has 1 left and you end up hitting him and killing him, but the one that needs 3 or 4 takes a short hop in a different direction. Catching the pendant, it's the same thing as before, just like in Eastern. You want to make sure that you catch the pendant as low as possible. A safe and easy way, if you don't have a visual cue on the floor that you're looking for, is just to at least make sure that the shadow of the pendant is lined up right at the top of Link's hat. Now where I catch it here, you can be a little bit lower. You can actually be right around 8 pixels below where the shadow of the pendant is to catch it at the lowest point. But like I said before, if you want to just make sure that you catch it safely, but you catch it low enough to make it fast, just line up the bottom of the shadow with the top of Link's hat.